Okay. So, as you can kind of tell, we make this up as we go along. There are a lot of metaphors for this. I think spaghetti against the wall is probably a good one. And we see what sticks. But to be honest with you, as good as ideas are, you have to have partners to work with who are willing to just bet on an idea and do so in a completely voluntary way. And so the group of people that we have here that have been with us, locals, natives of the oil region, and also internationals like my friend Brenda Schaefer up here, are all dedicated to this cause. So I decided this year that we have a very special person who's going to be leaving our team, and that is the site administrator, Michael Knecht, is going to be retiring in April, which I don't know how we're all going to deal with that because, and I think Sam can talk a little bit about this. He was really instrumental to what we were doing. And actually, Sam, you had the first touch point, so why don't you explain that?
So before we did this forum, the kind of our proof of concept happened when Andrew Tabler gave me a call one day a few years back and said, Sam, the ambassador from Azerbaijan to the United States wants to come to Drake Well. Can we make it happen? And so I said, yes, of course, we can. Like, when, like 6 months? He said, no, in 3 weeks. So I came out to Drake Well, and that week was literally the first week that Michael had taken on the role as administrator. And it was a huge relief to me. I knew immediately that they hired the right guy, because he was the first person in Venango County that not only knew what Azerbaijan was, but where it was and how incredibly significant Baku's relevance was to our region. So I knew right then that we had the right guy, and I hate the thought that he's not going to be here next year.
So to honor what you've done for us, we have decided to have a prize. And this is the first prize. This is the 2025 Yellow Dog Conspiracy Award. It's not a real conspiracy. I'm being facetious, obviously, but it's our small group that is awarded. And I'll read from here. Presents with great appreciation to Drake Well Museum and Park Administrator Michael Knecht by the Drake Energy Security Forum, October 2025. Michael, please come up here and accept your reward. You got to say something too, Michael.
Thank you very much. I'm speechless. As you can tell, I can't talk. But this is very unexpected. It's just been a pleasure of mine and the team here at Drake Well to be part of what you all had envisioned 4 years ago. And we can't thank you enough for bringing this wonderful audience to our doors on an annual basis. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. All right. Over to you, the other Michael.
Good?
There we go.
Great. All right. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for having me back. This is my 4th year at the Drake Conference, and it gets better every year. And it's now reached a point when I come up here, I see people who I only see once a year, but have now become friends and almost like family. It was very nice when yesterday morning when Ms. Cubbin came up to me and was just, hey, as if I hadn't seen her in a week, even though it's been a year. So this is a wonderful event. I'm glad you guys have stayed around. We have a good panel for you. The interesting thing of the last, we'll call it 2 days, we're almost done with day 2, is that the topic for this panel, or the title, Getting Energy from Production to Market, kind of has been touched upon by most, if not all, of the other panels, including Mike Summers this morning talking about getting energy to market. So I'll do a brief introduction of my panelists, starting on my right with Mark Pearson. Mark, as you met earlier today, is the president of Liberty Resources, and I thought it was important to have a producer on this panel. So even though we're looking at how do we move the energy, but having somebody who produces the energy on the panel I thought was very important. Then to my immediate right is Erik Johnson, Vice President of Eddystone. And he and Don Hauser, who's with Berkshire Hathaway, they provide the middle stuff, moving the resource to market. Don has been with Berkshire Hathaway in government affairs for about 15 years. He's also based up here. Erik informed me that he was born in Pennsylvania, in the Philadelphia area, so it's great to have him come this way. And then on my far left is Senator Scott Hutchinson, who I'm sure you all know. And I think his component, or how I looked at it when Andrew said, hey, do you want to moderate an energy production to consumption panel? And I thought it would be great to have somebody from government to talk about the process, and we've talked a lot earlier about permitting and being a key thing. So with that, Mark, I know you have a slide, and I have a clicker somewhere. Excuse me.
I think they can put it up at the back.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I thought I'd perhaps start by giving you a perspective from the private oil and gas industry. This industry, has a lot of facets associated with it. And if you think about everything we've been discussing here, everything from getting oil and gas out of the ground to the surface, processing it, pipelining it, treating it in some way, and then eventually to the consumer or to the refinery or to the export or to the LNG. There's just a lot associated with that and a lot of different skill sets. Well, in the United States, about 40% of the drilling is done by private companies. And we don't have a big staff. And we're somewhat specialists that we kind of understand rocks and we understand how we're going to try and get this stuff out of the ground and how to maybe try and get it out better than our neighboring oil and gas companies doing it to justify an equity investor why they're going to invest in our country, in our company. But we don't know how to pipeline. We don't know how to build big facilities. We don't know how to negotiate LNG export contracts or anything like that. We're typically selling at the wellhead. At the wellhead. And so when my backers and my company, we look for opportunities to invest, we have to have pipeline takeaway capacity. Now, thanks to our current administration, it's very hard to raise money in oil. Even though I've been operating in the Bakken for the last 15 years, I can't raise money for oil right now because some people in the White House keep saying oil is going to go to $50 a barrel. And unless you're in the core of these basins, you can't make money, you can't make private equity style returns at $50 in oil. So my company, we focused on gas. And the first most important thing we have to look at is how's the gas going to get from our production well to a market. And much as I would love to be working in Pennsylvania, I can't even consider Pennsylvania. I can't even consider being here in the Appalachian because there's no way for me to get that gas to market. I don't have the expertise, I don't have the people, I don't have the access to negotiations. I have no idea about permitting a pipeline. And so we have to look at this, and we rely on other people in the industry, and it's referred to in the industry as the arch of pain. Yeah, if you want to supply gas, and you're a producer like we are, and you want to supply gas to those LNG export facilities, you've got to be within the arch of pain, below the arch of pain, because there's pipeline capacity. In fact, my company's been working a lot of deals in the Haynesville Shale in North Louisiana, East Texas, and every project that we work, the big question, how much capacity is? Oh, we've got X amount capacity. We've got, tens of BCF a day of capacity on this particular pipeline. It's not an issue. And so, as particular, those of you here in Pennsylvania look at opportunities for this great resource, the largest in the country, to actually supply the country's energy needs, the world's energy needs. These pipelines are critical, and having pipeline capacity is critical. and something that 40% of the industry, it's very hard for us to go and address.
Okay, we're going to jump over Erik for a second and move to Don because he also has a presentation. I think your slide should, if you click,
There it is.
should go right after.
All right, wonderful. I'm Don Hauser. I'm doing external affairs. I manage external affairs for our company in all of Pennsylvania and all of New York. So that's state and local government as well as just dealing with permitting the projects that we're talking about. But a little bit about Berkshire Hathaway Energy, in particular our company, BHE GT&S, which is Berkshire Hathaway Energy Gas Transmission and Storage. I was not focus group when that came about.
There will be a test on that at the end.
Yeah. Quite an acronym, but we're part of Berkshire Hathaway Energy. And there's a slide on Berkshire Hathaway Energy's assets from coast to coast. And there we are on the right-hand side of that map, and you can see our assets from going New York down to Florida and that little dot in Alabama as well. Pipeline, I'm going through this really quickly, just really quickly. But BHE GT&S, who are we? In this part of the state, we're Eastern Gas Transmission and Storage. That's our pipeline assets in Pennsylvania, about 1,500 miles of interstate natural gas pipeline in Pennsylvania with 300 BCF of storage in storage capacity. That's 11 storage fields that we operate in Pennsylvania. We have 17 in total, 11 are in Pennsylvania, with 300 BCF of storage. That's a lot of gas. So this panel, when we're talking about outlets for natural gas production, we're pretty well poised. And I don't have a map on this, but you've seen enough through today, yesterday, and through everybody's lives here. You've seen that overlay of Marcellus Shale going across Pennsylvania from southwest Pennsylvania to northeast PA. That's our pipeline system. So when I'm talking about 1,500 miles of pipeline, that is exactly our system. So we're poised to capture that production in Pennsylvania and move it to markets. I think I can stop there because I have other slides I can address as we get into different topics. But that's the overview of the company, and look forward to the topics.
Great, thank you. Erik, do you want to make some opening remarks kind of about your experience?
Sure. It's fascinating to be here and be where the industry was founded and see the exchange and the like, because if you go to the East Coast, that's where everything moved for a while. You think of Rockefeller Center. Many major oil companies used to be headquartered in New York. On the Delaware River in the Philadelphia area, we had 9 refineries, and that's where the demand still lies. We had 9 refineries. We're now down to 3 refineries, and there's been a retreat. So it's interesting, again, to be here because back in 2012, the Philadelphia refineries were shutting. My business partner and I were sitting in the governor's office, and we were looking at a project that would assumed the refineries were going to shut, they were going to be uneconomic, and what type of process units could we take out of those and repurpose with natural gas? One of my business partner's friends stopped by and said, "Jack, what are you doing here?" "Oh, that's an interesting idea. It's dead on arrival. Don't even think of it. The refineries are vital to Pennsylvania. We have to find out a way to make them work. We'll support you. Why don't you even try to buy one? Do whatever, but don't do anything to harm them." At that point, we started to look at the Bakken shale revolution and what could be done. I think a lot of people view the East Coast to be a place where there are dragons. If you're in oil and gas, it's a horrible place to do business, they think, and it can be. But if you hit the right tune, we were able to secure a location. We secured a partner, Enbridge Pipelines, who shared a vision with us, and we were able to build and permit a terminal in a very short period of time. We were able to get our permits very simply. We got a standing ovation in the Eddystone Borough Hall when our permits were issued, the zoning variances and the like. So, as we start thinking about where we are now, there's been a little bit of fatigue from the first part of the shale revolution when everybody thought it was going to be big. It didn't hit. But now we have less refining capacity on the East Coast. We're down to 4 refineries total. And we're more and more dependent on foreign crude, foreign oil. And the challenge with that is, think of where that comes from. It comes from places like Nigeria and Angola. Who's there? Who has invested heavily in those countries? China. So it's not a problem now, but think if this trade war escalates. Think of where things can go. Think of where somebody can throw a nice little wrench. It's the East Coast, and that will be a very severe challenge. So for energy security and the like, it's wonderful that the Appalachian Basin is booming, or should be booming more. We need to develop the market, if you will, and take that energy to market and back out the foreign imports.
Great, thank you. Senator, I'm going to give you a short question. What can you do to help Mark be willing to, or be able to produce in Pennsylvania?
Great question, but certainly both of you gentlemen really made a case for why Pennsylvania is a terrible place to do business. And unfortunately, I have to agree with you in so many ways. A lot of that is predicated on the regulatory environment, the slow permit approvals. I mean, like every roadblock that government bureaucrat can think of, they throw it up there. And then you add into that, and I don't want to offend any attorneys in the room, but the lawsuit climate is also very difficult in Pennsylvania. I mean, even if you get something through the process, all the public stuff, and then a lawsuit comes, and private industry does not want to waste their time and resources fighting things in court like that. So they just don't even look. And one of those problems is about the venue of where your case is heard. I think I frequently describe Pennsylvania as two Pennsylvanias because the southeast part of the state is extremely resistant to any kind of fossil fuel usage in Pennsylvania. And unfortunately, with that kind of background, that's where lawsuits against pipelines or siting of new generation sites for electricity, natural gas electricity, somehow they end up in a court in Philadelphia, and that is not a great environment. The General Assembly has tried to say, put criterion in place to where these lawsuits, any lawsuit can be filed, and somehow the court has said, that's our purview, you can't tell us. So, but that being said, I think there's two parts to the regulatory side and the permitting side. One of those, which we actually statutorily created 13 months ago. Again, somebody's in between the legislature and the implementation, and you can guess who that is. But we did put in place an option for those who want a permit quicker from DEP. It's only in some categories of permits, but the thought process was if the work ethic and timelines that DEP is going to process these papers, some industries are willing to say, we will pay more money and use a qualified third-party company or individual who's qualified by DEP. They're professionals, engineers, consultants, and use them to do all of the early permit approval. The final approval, of course, will be done by DEP, but having third-party review up front, most likely in a much faster regime because they're being paid extra to do that. Industry's willing to do that in many cases. I think it's a great model to try, but again, we're 14 months in and no permit has gone through that process yet because the process hasn't been been fleshed out completely yet, but I think there's promise there. The other thing is a more of a longer run look at what regulations do we have on the books. Do they make common sense today? I think one of our earlier panels, somebody mentioned that, the fact that we built many of these industries and regulatory schemes based on something that happened or an industry that was changing 50 years ago, and the regulations are still in place. Do they make sense today? What can we do to remove some of those and make them more applicable to the year 2025? And the General Assembly also, again, we have multiple ways to look at that, whether it's an automatic sunset of older regulations. Some have talked about having a independent office of the repealer who would be empowered not to repeal, but to make recommendations to, they would be given a maybe 5-year time period and say, look at every single regulation on the books, make recommendations to which ones we should get rid of and change today. Again, that would be an independent agency that's separate from the governor's office because, yes, we do have an independent regulatory review commission here in Pennsylvania. However, all the appointees there are made by the governor. So they end up being a rubber stamp for his regime. So changing those regulations, making permits faster are two big things that government should be doing pronto.
That would be a very interesting job. I'll have to look out for that job announcement. Don, on that note, Berkshire Hathaway has significant assets in the state of Pennsylvania. Are you looking to expand those assets? Are you looking to build new assets? How do you factor in that? And I kind of say expansion because when I used to work for a pipeline company as well, and you guys bought some of our assets. But we were always looking to expand, never necessarily to build a new pipe to a new, from point A to point B, but just to expand our existing network was always more than enough to keep us busy.
You're right. Growth is essential in the pipeline business. If you're not growing, shame on you. And the bright side is we're growing in Pennsylvania. We have 2 projects right now before the FERC. FERC now has a full complement of commissioners, so we have 2 projects there. One has already received its environmental assessment, and another is on its way to the FERC staff reviewing the project for an environmental assessment. So those are 2 growth projects. One's in central Pennsylvania, and one is in western Pennsylvania. And the central Pennsylvania one carries gas, Pennsylvania-produced gas, that's in our storage and Mighty storage fields in western Clinton County down to Washington Gas and Light in the DC area. We call it our capital area project. The other one that's before the FERC right now is our Appalachian Reliability Project, which is totally based in Washington, PA, and that's really what this is all about. That's designed for producers of natural gas to get their gas to the interstate natural pipeline system. And that, once again, is Pennsylvania-produced gas, where producers are producing and they need that gas to go to market, and we're here to help them. Thirdly, how we're growing in Pennsylvania, and this topic has been discussed widely for the conference, is LNG. We have a company called Pivotal LNG, and we also have Cove Point LNG. So Cove Point LNG is our Cove Point terminal on the shore of the Chesapeake Bay. It's the United States' only LNG export facility on the east coast of the United States. And one fun fact of that, I always enjoy talking about this, the customers for that gas are producers. The customers are foreign customers, right? And they were tasked with finding producers to deliver gas to the terminal that we would then liquefy and put on the ship, and there it would go. One of the producers is based in Pennsylvania, and that producer produces all that gas in Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, and it goes from a pipeline down to our Cove Point facility. We liquefy it, we put it on the tanker, and it goes off. That producer did a study, and this is always a cool fun fact. 45 days is what it took from the well tip to burning or keeping the flame going on that Olympic torch in Tokyo, Japan. 45 days from that molecule of natural gas produced in Susquehanna County, PA, to lighting and keeping lit the Olympic torch in Tokyo. It's amazing how Pennsylvania is now part of the world economy of natural gas. And we do that through Cove Point. We do it through our smaller scale LNG facility, one that's right in Towanda, Bradford County, Pennsylvania. Through that facility, and I have a slide, and I'm gonna zip through it, but just the bright spots of what we do, and it's okay, it's not there, but I'll talk about it, is through LNG and small scale LNG, there we are, I magically got right to it. We not only are peaking for gas distribution companies along the East Coast, Alabama, Florida, et cetera, where we produce that LNG, but you'll see on the left slide of there, that's just last month. That's Jack's LNG, the largest marine terminal LNG facility in the United States that we operate, filling, bunkering the Royal Caribbean's largest cruise ship ever built, powered by LNG. So we are sending that LNG to cruise ships. You know, the international maritime industry is going to LNG, away from diesel. We have those facilities to make that happen. Here on the second slide, you see a rocket lifting up in Florida. Mark, to your earlier point, this is not your father's rocket fuel. Rocket fuel now is LNG and liquefied oxygen. And that LNG is produced for one particular rocket launch right in Towanda, Pennsylvania, right in Bradford County. Bradford County produced gas, we liquefy it, it went on truck to Florida, and a rocket lifted up to space. So Pennsylvania really is, you know, a world player in natural gas and how we get those products to market. And we're growing, and we're doing this through Towanda. We're bunkering international shipping on the Great Lakes. Like I said, with it, the international maritime industry going to LNG as its fuel, we're doing that, and we're trucking that LNG all across the Mid-Atlantic for peaking. So when your burner tip needs to go on in that cold February 5th morning, you know, that peaking fuel might have come from Towanda, Pennsylvania, Trussville, Alabama, or Jacksonville, Florida. So these are areas that we're into, that we're developing more, and certainly with the interstate natural gas system, as long as our friends are producing more, and they are, we're here to help them get that product to market.
Great, and that kind of leads to another topic that I wanted to address to you, Erik. I know it may be outside of your expertise, but I guess, why doesn't Pennsylvania have an LNG export terminal when it has all this gas?
Ouch. So I think the best way to answer that is if you go and look at the Delaware River, on first glance, it is a wonderful place to develop a brownfield project. There is so much there. But then you need to go and you need to look at a couple of things. Number one, can you get gas there? Right now, the area is constrained for gas. So there's not much spare pipeline capacity in the area at all. And who's going to sign the contracts to get that constructed? Who's going to give somebody like an Enbridge a take-or-pay contract so that they know they can construct it, they can get it through FERC and the like. And then you need to look further at what are the requirements for an LNG site. There are thermal setback zones that you need if you're near a business or something. So for instance, where we are located, we have Boeing next to us where they make all of the Chinooks. They do a lot of other work there. On the other side, we have a chocolate roaster, and the chocolate roasting business, it smells like a brownie place all the time, except when it catches fire. So those thermal zones are very important, and our facility, I put it into ChatGPT a while ago, you're not going to do it without severely interrupting the businesses around there for a world-class LNG facility. And if you keep on going down the river, you need to put it in a place where people are going to be happy that it's there. You don't want to put it into the middle of an urban neighborhood where maybe you get it through, but you're going to be pushing it through. It needs to be a happy project because people want jobs. They love the idea of environmentally sound, safe, high-paying jobs, and LNG fits that. So there's one place where an LNG terminal was permitted on the Delaware River in New Jersey. It got pushed through. The developer, unfortunately, it was an import terminal. The developer did not realize that that part of New Jersey, all of the water at the high water line, that's Delaware's. Delaware has what's called the Coastal Zone Act. That was put in place in the 1970s when Shell tried to build a refinery, and it didn't go through. There were signs of "to hell with Shell" all over, and Delaware basically said, you can't build anything anywhere on the Delaware River. So that went up to the Supreme Court, and it collapsed. And the challenge is there are people who have been involved in that in the area, and they remember it, and it was a project that took years off of their lives. So it's possible. It's going to need fresh people, and you want to put it in a place where it's a good fit. You want to take care of the Delawareans. You don't want to say, we want to do it and we're going to litigate. That might work in Texas or in other locations. If you go the litigation route, you're going to have all sorts of environmental groups, fundraising. It's going to be great for them. So don't give them a target. So long answer, but it's a challenge. There's a solution, I'm sure.
Where there's a will, there's a way, I guess. Mark, I know, as you said in your remarks, you don't produce here. But have you looked at the Marcellus as kind of what, how would you view the potential for increasing production in the Marcellus? I mean, is that achievable? I think yesterday somebody referred to, discovered uncompleted wells and just how much capacity there may be.
Well, first of all, I'll say that I haven't looked at, in terms of a big subsurface review and what we might do, but just conceptually, it's a basin that's constrained by its pipeline capacity. So there is a lot of opportunity to grow that production. And where there's a will, where there's an opportunity, industry will step in and go do it. So I have no doubt that if there's the capacity to get it to market, then this area can grow significantly. The question is, how's that going to happen? And I think the other thing I come back to as well is that 40% of the whole industry in the country is private companies. We kind of feel like we're out of the opportunity to come work in Pennsylvania.
Senator, on that note, so what's going on in Harrisburg that might alleviate some of these? I mean, you talked about some initiatives, but are there other initiatives? Is there support for reform?
On paper, regulatory reform is a bipartisan issue. And I think you will find folks on both sides of the aisle saying, we disagree on a lot of things, but we agree with you that our regulatory climate is not good. Our governor has, as I said, we did do the independent third-party review legislation. He did sign that. Again, it's been slow to be implemented, but he did support that. And I'm hoping that the cooler heads will look at the bigger picture. I'm also going to give a shout out, and I think some of the other panelists in earlier panels gave a shout out to both of our U.S. senators, both of whom have been common sense leaders and willing to talk about the importance of positioning Pennsylvania in the energy environment. So the one thing I wanted to say, it almost seems that as a layperson, as I look at a map of Pennsylvania, I say, well, we should build our own pipelines within the state, and then we'd control it. But then because of the constraints we have here, it almost seems like it's easier to do an interstate pipe. If you cross a state line, all of a sudden the Pennsylvania regulators are way down on the totem pole. The projects that Mr. Hauser was talking about, those are interstate. So they were able to get some stuff done. Again, maybe I'm missing something, but that's my thought is cross the state line and maybe it'll be easier for you to get some of this pipeline. But getting our gas to markets is critical for Pennsylvania to grow. And north of us, we could do so much if we could build a pipeline going up into the Northeast states. It would be transformative for those states and their gas prices that people pay to heat their homes, et cetera, et cetera. We could change the Northeast immensely if we were allowed to cross the lines and get a pipeline going up that way. But as much as I sort of doubt that there is a happy place in southeastern Pennsylvania to locate a facility, I hope I'm wrong. It's an even more daunting task to get the ability to cross that New York line and then get some pipelines going up that direction. But I hope I'm wrong, but that's sort of how I see things today.
Okay, I'm going to give an anecdote on this topic while everybody thinks of their questions. And when I'm done, then I will open it up to the audience for questions. And the anecdote is, and this was probably 15 or 16 years ago even, Adam Szyminski, who I think may have left. I don't see him here. But Adam and I attended a conference of the U.S. Association for Energy Economics. And the panel was about New York and New York prohibiting shale development. And Adam's question to their environmental representative from New York's DEQ, Adam's question was, do you regulate the dairy industry and the farming industry as much as you're doing the gas industry? And the guy he didn't even almost acknowledge the question. He's just like, next. Because he knew that they don't, because it's a much stronger, much bigger political lobby for the dairy industry. So any questions from the audience? I know you're tired. Oh.
Just a minute. No, I'll get you.
I got you.
Okay.
Thank you guys for coming. We had a lot of conversation earlier about AI data centers in Pennsylvania. It seems to make all the sense in the world for those to be powered by natural gas. And I wonder, even with those projects that have been listed, what's the timeline and the burden for taking pipelines to Shippingport or to the one in Homer City in Indiana County and those kind of projects? What kind of burden and timeline do we have there?
Hypothetically, and this goes back to the senator's point about timing of permits. If it were a FERC project, if we were building a new pipeline and we needed a new compressor station for any type of project, right, it would be a 7C project with the FERC, and that timeline is roughly about 16 months. So you build that in, and to your point of it maybe being easier, I don't know. 16 months is a long time to apply and get your certificate from the commission to go ahead and build your project. And within that timeline, you build in your state and local permits as well. But to your exact point, it could be done in a variety of different ways. If our pipeline system or any pipeline system were near a project, a data center, it wouldn't necessarily have to fall to that pipeline operator to build that lateral. It could be a GDC, a gas distribution company, which would not then go to the FERC. It would be a PSC or a PUC issue at the state. So there are different ways to do it. Like I talked about that 16-month timeline that the FERC roughly about from applying to getting a certificate. That could be truncated by months doing it that way. Or the route, if a data center were proposed in an area not near an interstate pipeline, then you're talking about a project that could be permitted in around 16 months. So that would be the timeline. Well, you know, if you're not near like a gas distribution company that has that capacity on its line to serve the need for the demand of a data center, right? That's a large demand for natural gas. You would need the help of an interstate system to get that there. Could be. Let's talk.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment on data centers? Okay, go ahead.
So my understanding is there is an unregulated pipeline operator in the eastern part of the state who had tried to build an interstate pipeline and connect it up to New York. That failed. And like all good things, after a while, they have spare pipeline capacity, and they are looking to try to get data centers co-located on this interstate Pennsylvania pipeline. So there is an opportunity there. Who knew?
Okay. Sid?
Following up on this question here about if you can't move gas out of the state, then of course, and probably thought of this, then you use it in the state. Can you wheel electricity, or is that just as problematic if you just produce electricity, not for data centers, but just wheel electricity across the state? Or could you make fertilizer and ship that across the state? Or would any gas-fired project be problematic because of environment?
The only thing I'll say, I think we have transmission lines today, but if you start talking about massive amounts, then you're going to talk about building that system bigger, and that's tough. I don't think there's a connection between that electricity was made by natural gas, therefore we don't want it in New York. I don't think that's the thought process. I think it's more we don't want a transmission line, or we don't want this transmission line is here upgraded in a massive way because we don't like transmission lines. They like the electricity. They want that electric light to turn on when they flick the switch, but they don't want necessarily building new transmission.
Anyone else want to comment?
Yeah, I'd add to that to your question, there isn't a shortage of demand on natural gas. For our system in particular, the last 3 years, we've set records every single year on the throughput of our interstate system. So there is no shortage of demand. It's about, really expanding use of natural gas. Like we talked about LNG, we talked about small-scale LNG. Is there an aerospace industry, right? Growth there. Is there an opportunity to get in jet fuel, right? Can we make sustainable jet fuel with LNG or natural gas? There's a lot of opportunities there to discuss on how we get that product to market in Pennsylvania. And as long as technology keeps exploring new avenues, that product is always there to lend a hand.
Any other questions from the audience? Put that microphone down, Andrew. We're not done. Now, I had a quick follow-up question, Don. Your pipeline network goes through Pennsylvania and into New York, right? And New York doesn't have an issue with that gas, but they do have an issue with shale gas moving across into the western part of the state. Mark earlier today in one of his charts showed that, 90% of U.S. gas is fracked. I guess, is that gas going up through the pipeline that's there also fracked, and do they not have a problem with that?
I think we can safely say all gas is fracked. But, and yes, our pipeline system goes well into New York, up through Buffalo and into the capital region of Albany. And we are partial owners of the Iroquois system where that gas is taken into Connecticut and Long Island and New York City, so into the downstate as well. So, like I said, the records also include our system in New York for demand, and the demand is not going away even in New York. I think that's evident every year. When we look at our run times of engine, we look at gas throughput through those engines in New York, we are setting records. So there's no shortage of demand in New York State, no matter the politics that are there. The folks, the businesses, the burners tips, those nursing homes, schools on Monday mornings, they need to turn on February 5th. They need, the burner tips need to fire, and there is growth there, and I think there's a couple more projects coming down the line for New York State, and hopefully that opens up the window for more.
Okay. Any other comment? Any other questions from the audience? No? Okay. Well, with that, I don't know if we solved the permitting issue in Pennsylvania, but I think it's been a great discussion, and please give the panelists a round of applause. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you very much. We are going to be probably starting this panel a bit earlier than, but I'm going to take up some time and give credit where it's due, which I normally do at the end. So those of you that are on the final panel, be Ambassador Jeffrey, Brenda Schaefer, Shahani, and of course we have Victoria Coates and Ambassador Ibrahim from Azerbaijan beaming in. But I wanted to talk a little bit about those that make this all possible. We have them up here on this placard. I've already talked about. You got a chance to meet our collaborators here in the Oil Region Alliance in the Venango Area Chamber of Commerce, particularly in Oil City yesterday. But as you can already tell from our award to Michael Neck for service rendered, the Drake Well and the Friends of Drake Well are certainly in this category of our supporters, and I really just can't thank you all enough. We couldn't do this stuff without you. You have the capacity and the spare capacity to make everything possible, you know, from name tags to venues like this and so on. And I would encourage all of you to think about these venues for upcoming events. We did that. This is the first time. There's no reason why you can't do it. And I can tell you where to buy these monitors really cheap. Or maybe you can rent them from us. Who knows? Looking for business opportunities. So that's on that stamp. We also have two long-term supporters of ours that really helped us take this to another level. And that is the Commonwealth Foundation here in Pennsylvania, outstanding organization. Liz Stell is here somewhere, or was here, I think. She's a very busy lady. She's probably working on her laptop in the back. She interviewed G.T. Thompson and Mike Kelly. She's out there, great. Outstanding organization, very hands-off. They get the right people here. They beat the drum. They got the folks from Indiana County up to talk to us. That doesn't happen all the time, right? And to see what kind of opportunities like we see in Homer City up here, and hopefully that leads to something. And of course, the Heritage Foundation, Victoria Coates, my former boss on the NSC, is just an outstanding organization. We heard from Kevin today, in detail. I spent a lot of time with the folks at Heritage, and I really just can't thank them enough. What I love about them is they just produce so much data that I rely on all the time, and it's all part. What I also like about them too, and this goes for Commonwealth, is they're just strong enough and confident enough to put their ideas out there, and they're not really afraid for people to come up here and disagree with them. That's very unusual. And as you know, in this organization, we try and rely on that respect for difference of opinion up here to really have it out and to have a logical discussion, right? And then we move from there. And that's what we're going to be doing with what we found here this year. Everything, because it's live streamed, will be put into the transcript, and then we're going to boil that down into a report that we're going to be providing to people in the sort of government sector and also in the private sector. But I can't thank anybody enough, really, who've been with us from the very, very beginning, and that's Seneca Resources, just an amazing organization, really cool, also hands-off, amazingly, right? And they've been with us, literally from the beginning. So we can't. And Rob Bulwar is here in the back. I think he's the lone representative from Seneca. He's also the coolest representative from Seneca. Yeah. Everybody knows Rob, and I hope he's going to party with us tonight. But then we have what we call wildcatter sponsors. Why do I call them wildcatter? Because the term in the industry, wildcatter, came from where? Petroleum Center. A hollow in Petroleum Center is called Wildcat Hollow. And someone drilled there, right? Nobody thought there was oil there. They made fun of him or her or whoever they were exactly. I'm sorry, I lack the knowledge of that. And they struck oil, and forever those that are bold enough to go out and find something where no one thinks it is located, it's a wildcatter. And so of course, we heard from Mike Summers earlier today, sponsored our dinner last night, amazing organization. They're coming back, okay? And they might have left, or their last sort of on-force visit here might have been in 1959, but now they're gonna be much more engaged. And I really appreciated all of Mike's comments. But also who have been with us from the beginning, who sponsored the lunches for us, is Shell. Now, why is Shell important? It's not just a major oil company, which it totally is, and we have 2 representatives from Shell. I hope you've been able to meet them here today. There we go, ladies. And yes, exactly. Why? Haley and Deanne are not just super nice people, but they are today, as you see in the program, I wrote the stewards of the Oil Creek brands, Quaker State and Pennzoil. They now own those 2 brands. So you don't only own the Standard Oil version in Pennzoil, but you own the independents as well who are represented in Quaker State. And that battle is one that we all know very, very well, and the struggle between Standard Oil and price fixing and actual market forces. So we really appreciate you, and thank you for your support from the beginning. We also really want to support or express appreciation to Cubbin Resources and Nancy Cubbin, because it was without her donation, not to us, but to Friends of Drake Well, to support a high-speed internet connection, fiber optic, into this facility, all of this would not be possible. Because before we came here, there was not a fiber optic connection for Friends of Drake Well. It allows them not just, we rent it for 1 day a year, and they get it for 364. Pretty good deal, right? And that's really important because now we have seminars up here. The legislature, I believe, has seminars up here. And it also will allow them, hopefully in the future, to get the gift shop online, right? We need to sell that stuff out there to the international community. There's definitely a demand for it. And I'm challenging Friends of Drake Well. We'll work with you to get that stuff out there, and we'll make sure that these people in this audience buy it. But we also have some other new contributors this year. National Fuel is sponsoring our train ride on the Oil Creek and Titusville Railroad from here up to the Titusville Iron Works. We're very, very happy to have them with us this year. But also Eddystone Marine and Rail Terminal. We heard from Erik a little bit earlier. Really interesting story, and every little bit counts. But I can't really, also, Airedale Oil and Gas, another branch of the Cubbin enterprises here have been instrumental, and they actually not only bet on good ideas, but they're also my former next door neighbors up on Hassan Heights. And really appreciate you and your support. And of course, our John R. Cubbin, who works for BP, who was here the last 2 years, was unable to attend, but we're very happy to have his father here with us as well. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, last but not least, the Barbara Harvey Morgan Center for the Study of Oil Heritage at Oil Region Venango Campus. Great facility. They're scanning all their records into digitalized form, applying for grants and so on. So really can't thank you all enough.